Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. The heavyweight undisputed title clash between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk has been rescheduled for May the 18th. I'm sure we can all get very excited about that. Fingers crossed it does actually happen. Now, there's been a very, very interesting interview that included Turki Al-Sheikh speaking to Ariel Helwani. He was alongside Tyson Fury, and there was a split screen with Alexander Usyk present with his manager, Egis Klimas. And the reason this was such an interesting interview is because if you're going to take what was said at face value, it proves that Tyson Fury was telling the truth. There was nothing untoward that occurred and the cut was all legitimate. If you don't take it at face value and you think that Turki Al-Sheikh is lying, something that many of you have put out there, well, then the plot thickens. We'll cover that. We'll also discuss the whole concept of bias, since a lot of you want to be bringing that up with regards to this discussion. And I also want to talk about the psychology of Tyson Fury, because within this same interview, he said something that to me stood out. And if you're a Tyson Fury fan, this might be concerning to you if you're analyzing his psychological state and readiness in order to fight Alexander Usyk. So let's talk about this. Let's start off discussing Al-Sheikh's comments. I'm going to paraphrase this slightly just because obviously English is not his first language and we want to make it flow in the English language grammatically speaking. But in terms of meaning, this is what he said. I quote, "I have a special camera in Fury's camp to oversee his training, and the incident and cut genuinely happened. I wouldn't put my reputation and my name on the line if I had even 1% doubt. I want this fight to happen. I delayed my health-related procedure in New York that was due for March because I want this fight to happen. I need to go to the hospital. It is my health we're talking about. If I thought Tyson Fury was scared to make the fight happen, I wouldn't be wasting my time. There's a precedent for this sort of thing too with Foreman and Ali. 18th of May is the new date. I guarantee $10 million for the fighter whose opponent pulls out of the fight. In other words, a fine. And I will let the fans around the world know if someone is scared and wants to escape from this fight. 18th of May, we'll have Tyson Usyk. If Usyk is scared and doesn't take the fight, I'll call for Fury Joshua. If Tyson is scared and pulls out, I'll call for any fighter that Usyk wants as an opponent. And I put my name down on this as a guarantor. On the 18th, we will have the answer, whether someone is scared, a coward, or if he will have the fight of the century. Tyson told me that he wants to fight on the scheduled date with the cut, and I said no. It would be crazy for me to put you in the ring like this, but even if he's not ready for the 18th of May, I expect him to fight because we have a deadline with the IBF. Now, the reason this pretty much puts this to bed, if you take Turki Al-Sheikh as a genuine witness at face value, well, then he's telling you, I've witnessed the incident. I witnessed the cut. I saw the camera footage of it. If you think Tyson Fury is capable of making him lie, then obviously you're going to discount that. But otherwise, he's telling you, I saw it. Even if you want to assume he's lying, he's basically telling you, I have a health-related issue that needs addressing, and I've put it off. I'm not going to put it off for somebody that's trying to waste time. In addition to that, by setting the deadline of the 18th of May, and saying that even if Fury isn't fully recovered, he still expects him to be involved in the fight. Otherwise, whoever doesn't take part in the fight is going to be fined $10 million. That's not really conducive with trying to look after Tyson Fury's best interests, is it? If a lot of people are saying that actually he'll need a little bit longer to get ready, he might not be 100% sharp, it can take 3 months for the cut to fully heal and for him to be involved in sparring, hard sparring, he might be in a position where his preparation is a little bit rushed. If he was looking after his guy, he might have wanted to push it back a little bit further. And for those that would say, well, if he trusts Fury to turn up, why would he threaten to put a fine down? Well, that could just be to appease Alexander Usyk and his team. Usyk and his team might genuinely believe Fury wants out of the fight. And so by telling them, listen, I will fine him 10 million if he doesn't turn up, you're appeasing them. And instead of them saying, no, we're not hanging around, I'm going on to fight Hrgovic, it actually makes him say, you know what, fine, we'll push it back to May. Now, there are a lot of people that still don't believe. I had one character who was saying enough is enough, and he deleted that tweet. He went off on one a little bit. But then he wrote another tweet to say, if you can't see Turkey as biased and ruining the sport, then you're blind. He feels like God deciding what we can watch and what not. Sure, he might make sure we get to see a couple of fights, but this man is just trying to save his country when the fossil fuels have gone. Now, here's the problem with this logic. It's true, in my opinion, that the Saudis are not involved in boxing because they have this unbelievable passion for the sport. It may well be true that Turki Al-Sheikh is also a boxing fan, but in reality, the reason the Saudis are invested so much is because, in my opinion, they are trying to engage in what Joseph Nye called soft power. And I've covered this in a video in the past. It is about projecting an image to the world in order to exert influence. In other words, the Saudis want to produce a type of image to the world that says we are reliable, we have renewed, we are capable of being at the forefront of the world as we pushed forward into this century. In order to do that, you are trying to portray an image of honesty. Can you imagine the PR damage that would occur to the Saudis if it was to come out that Turki al-Sheikh is lying? If a doctor who decided to carry out a sham procedure, or a boxer or somebody within the camp decides to leak something, anything gets out, all of a sudden, this nation that is spending billions to rebrand their image is suddenly going to be seen as so untrustworthy that they can't even be honest when it comes to a sporting event. How on earth can you trust their political elite? It's too big of a risk. I personally don't buy it. Now, this hasn't stopped people coming at me. What are you talking about? You're a Fury apologist. The same old song and dance, right? You're biased in favor of Tyson Fury. So for those of you that are calling me biased and you're being abusive and questioning my integrity, let me give you a little analogy, okay? I want you to imagine that there's a crime being reported. And this little dude here, let's say he's representing one of these guys that's been very rude to me and is accusing me of certain things. He's sitting there one day drinking his lavender chai tea latte, and he sees another dude in the local area that perhaps was a bit of a troublemaker. He caught a couple of ASBOs when he was a kid, and so he's not really trusted. People think, okay, this guy's got a precedent here. He's untrustworthy, and he's got himself a brand new, shiny, very expensive phone. There's absolutely no way that this dude went out there, worked hard, earned a pay packet, and went and bought this mobile phone. There's no way. He must have stolen it. His track record tells me that. So you decide to finish off that lavender chai tea latte and run after a police officer. You need to report this crime. So you find yourself this very charming officer. Let's call him Officer Andre. And you say, Officer Andre, I need you to investigate this dude. I know for a fact he's stolen this phone. I know for a fact you must investigate it. And I say, okay, my little friend, tell me why you think that this man has stolen this phone. And you explain, trust me, he's got a track record. You've got to question him. There's no way that this guy bought this phone. Officer Andre follows up on this and he corners this little ASBO kid and he says to him, excuse me, sir, I've been told that this phone has perhaps been stolen. Do you have any proof of purchase? And he says, of course, Officer Andre, here is the mobile phone receipt. At this point, the accuser says, no. We don't know whether that receipt is showing that phone. It shows a purchase of a phone, but there's no model number written down. So Officer Andre challenges the ASBO kid again and he says, well, do you have anything else that you can show me? And he says, sure, here's my bank statement. Okay, so now there's a second piece of evidence there. The accuser's made an accusation, but the evidence is starting to stack up. Well, no, Officer Andre, says the accuser. We don't know for sure. All that's showing is outgoings. We don't know what it's been spent on. So Officer Andre decides to go down to the phone shop where he purportedly bought the mobile phone from. And he approaches the phone manager in there and he says, excuse me, do you remember this gentleman? Did he purchase a phone from here? And the manager confirms it. He bought this specific model. It's a true purchase. The money's come through. Now, at this point, even if you had your suspicions because of the man's previous behavior, Officer Andre has investigated this in a fair and just manner. I've looked at the evidence. I've analyzed the evidence. And there's been enough evidence presented to me to suggest that he is not guilty of a crime in this instance. I cannot possibly assume that this man is guilty based on what I've seen. And as a result, I cannot produce charges against him. Now, if you're a logical human being, you're going to understand how Officer Andre got to that point. And you're going to say, you know what, Officer Andre, I understand that, but keep an eye on this dude. Because in general, I don't trust him. That would be a reasonable thing. For those of you out there that have observed this whole thing with Tyson Fury, if you're going to say to me, I don't trust him, I think he's a pathological liar. But in this particular case, Chris, I get why you're saying what you're saying about thinking the cut's genuine. I can't really see how the evidence adds up to it being fake, but I still don't trust him and I'm still suspicious about him moving forward. That would be reasonable. Instead, what you guys are doing, who are being abusive and saying Chris Andre's biased, he's an apologist for Tyson Fury, is the equivalent of turning around to that officer who's observed all of the evidence and saying, this is police corruption. How dare you not charge him? And you lot blowing the top, steam coming out your ears. It's ludicrous. You sound insane. Stop accusing somebody of being biased and insulting their integrity when all I've done is addressed every aspect of the evidence. And in terms of the accusatory process, when you look at some of the claims that have been made that are just reaching, it actually reminds me a little bit of the excuses Deontay Wilder's team and his fans were making when Tyson Fury beat him. It was that level of reaching. The first 7 you can see on your screen here, I'd already addressed in the previous video. Go check that out. Number 8, how do we know Turki isn't lying? I've addressed that in this video. Number 9, Fury might have stitched a healthy eyelid, is what somebody told me on Twitter. That's highly unlikely. You risk the chances of infection. You risk the chances of nerve damage. This would be a very risky thing with absolutely no evidence to back up that this might have happened. Number 10, it was Opataya that cut him, and he's been out the camp for ages. Well, I initially thought it was Alexis Barrier. It turns out Agron Smikici has said that it was him. I'm not sure why. If it was Opataya, it makes a difference. I mean, what's the claim here? That it happened earlier in camp and they delayed cancelling it? What does that prove? All that could possibly suggest is that there was a cut earlier in the camp. He decided, actually, I want to go ahead with the fight, which would reinforce what Turki was saying, that Fury wanted to go ahead with the fight. It wasn't going to heal in time, and they finally convinced him to pull out of the fight. Now, I don't think that's actually what happened here, because the cut seems too fresh. It's just yet another nonsense claim where people were reaching. But even if it was true, it means nothing. Number 11, Smikici might be lying by claiming it was a punch to make the incident sound believable when it didn't really happen at all. In other words, if he contrasts Tyson Fury by saying, no, it wasn't an elbow, it was a punch, it looks as though he's actually being defiant, so people might actually trust him, when in reality, nothing at all happened. Well, again, there's no evidence for that. And then the final one, the cut keeps switching eyes. Now, I'm not the most technologically literate geezer you're going to come across, but even I know that a mobile phone, the front-facing camera can often be inverted, so it's almost like looking in a mirror. So if he's taking a video from one side, it can look as though he's got a cut on the left eye, and then if he's using the front-facing camera, it can look like it's on the right eye, and vice versa. But actually think about what it is that you're saying and what road you're going down here. For all of these things to be true, it would mean that there's a makeup artist involved, and that the makeup artist is applying makeup on a daily basis to Tyson Fury's eye to make it look like it's been damaged when it hasn't. And not only is the makeup artist and Tyson Fury forgetting which eye they applied the makeup to the day before, but everybody around him also failed to notice that detail. And on top of all that, one last little thing, you know who else would have to be in on this? Sugar Hill. And it was Sugar Hill that everybody said let the cat out of the bag when the negotiations fell apart the first time around, because he said that he was not in the UK to train Tyson Fury. And people were praising him, saying how honourable he was because he wasn't willing to lie for Tyson Fury. So now all of a sudden, he's just decided that he's willing to lie, along with a makeup artist, a medical professional that stitched him, all of the sparring partners, and Turki and Tyson Fury, they're all in on it and they're lying. And anybody that doesn't accept that narrative is clearly a biased Tyson Fury fanboy. That's the road we've gone down. Let's move on from that. And let's talk about the psychology of Tyson Fury. There's something I found to be rather concerning if you are a fan of Tyson Fury's. There was one point where he went off on one a little bit at Egis Klimas. And here's what I find a little bit unusual about this. Klimas is a guy who says a lot of outlandish things. He's a guy that says very controversial things. He's a guy that can be very rude. And to be honest with you, if John Fury was saying some of these things, the backlash would be a lot greater. Don't get me wrong, he's not as brash as John Fury. John Fury, to be quite honest, says some pretty embarrassing things all the time. And he's a very unpopular character. Egis Klimas is not at that level, but he does say certain things that you would expect to have been said from the likes of John Fury. And the most recent thing is, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Tyson Fury was so scared of Usyk and he wanted to get out of the fight that he got some bitch to smack him in the head with a frying pan and cut him. And Tyson Fury went off on one and said, any man ever calls my wife that, they're going to lose their teeth. Don't you ever call my wife that. And Egis Klimas simply responded, I didn't say that about your wife. In other words, I wasn't responding about your wife when I made that claim. And instantly, very, very quickly, whilst he's in the middle of a rant, Fury, and he's being aggressive, he says, okay, well then I apologize. I thought you were talking about my wife. And if anyone says that about my wife, and he carries on going off on one. To me, that was a bit of a red flag. Because if you're genuinely furious at another man because you think he said something about your wife, when he says, I didn't say that about your wife, the natural reaction might be to pause for a moment, if you're genuinely convinced he said that about your wife, and challenge him. Who were you saying it about then? And then you potentially wait for an explanation. And if he explains and he says, oh, I was talking about Sugar Hill, or I was talking about Isaac Lowe, or something like that, in that scenario, you might then calm down a little bit because you realize, okay, he's not actually talking about my wife. I'm not saying you have to go off on one and completely lose your mind, but to instantly say, I apologize then, to go into that defensive mode, to me, it suggests that the rage wasn't real. It was manufactured. He was trying to put a message out of aggression. And this is a subtle but key difference. Because if Tyson Fury has genuinely become mentally and emotionally more civilized, if he's lost that fire He's trying to put the image out to the world of being the Gypsy King who's aggressive and ready to knock someone's teeth out, when in reality, he's not really in that place mentally or emotionally. In other words, we've all made discussions and comments about Tyson Fury perhaps declining physically, but is it possible that Tyson Fury has also declined mentally from the perspective of being a boxing warrior? Let me know what you think about that, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.